Greetings and welcome. This is Kumza Africa Amplified, your favorite podcast reverberating across Africa and beyond. In this episode, I am in conversation with Djibouti's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, His Excellency Minister Mahmoud Ali Youssouf. He is one of the candidates vying for the position of the African Union Commission Chairperson. He will be joining me as we talk about his continental vision and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us. Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Youssouf, greetings and welcome to Kumza Africa Amplified.
Thank you very much for having me in Comms Africa podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us. It must have been a hectic schedule that you have had, Minister, over the last 2 months since you submitted your bid for the African Union Commission Chairperson. Can you tell us about how the campaign is going so far, Minister?
Yeah, the campaign is really going well. As you said, I have been traveling a lot, meeting a lot of leaders, attending many conferences. I was in the UN General Assembly, 2 weeks ago, and then I participated in another conference in Paris. So my bid for the African Union Commission Chair is really motivated by 3 main reasons. One is that I'm a career diplomat with proper credentials. I have 2 decades as a foreign minister of my country experience and more than 3 decades of diplomacy in different positions. So I think also that I have a cultural background that goes beyond the linguistic limitations. And then finally, I have a very pragmatic plan and vision for the African Union in the coming years if I am elected.
It is not an easy race, is it?
No, it won't be an easy race, but rest assured that I'm not going to leave any stone unturned. My strategic approach will be to visit all capitals, to explain to our leaders my plan for the African Union and my vision for the African Union Commission. And I am quite confident because I think that my experience and the way I will really put my plan forward will help me convince all my interlocutors. And I think that, as I said, my credentials are quite interesting.
Now, are you satisfied with the endorsements that you have managed to garner so far, Minister?
Yes, indeed. I think that all my interlocutors understand that I am the man for the job for a number of reasons that I have just mentioned. My experience, the way I am also explaining my plan and vision to the leaders. And I think that the leaders understand that they need a young leader, they need a chairman of the commission that will have enough energy, the stamina to shoulder that responsibility. And I have good feedbacks and signals from the leaders I have met so far.
But some have called you America's candidate for this position. How does that make you feel?
That's not true. I'm an African and I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I think that my experience will show and demonstrate to all my listeners that Djibouti is a small country, yes, but a very strong contributor to peace and stability in our region. Djibouti is chairing IGAD, which is the regional organization. I have myself chaired so many councils of ministers. So I think that, qualifying Djibouti as a proxy of any superpower is a wrong qualification, or the way they describe my country, if they say that Djibouti is, a proxy for any superpower, is wrong. I mean, my qualifications, my skills, my experience will certainly have its weight on the balance
that's why I'm quite confident. I trust the choice of our leaders in next February. And as I said, I am quite confident to succeed and be elected to that position.
You have visited Kenya recently, Minister, the home turf of Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister of Kenya, and one of the candidates for this position. Did you talk about your AU chairperson candidacy during your visit to Kenya?
I mean, that was the main purpose of my visit to Nairobi, Kenya, and the move from our standpoint is that we should not leave any stone unturned, because we believe that the election to that position will take place on several rounds. And at the end of the third round, there will be only one candidate remaining to get the 2/3 votes needed to be elected. So that's my strategic approach. I think we send a special envoy to Mauritius, where Mauritius has a candidate for that, and we will go also to Madagascar. And I think that this is the best approach. We also try to explain why Djibouti has put forward my candidature. And I think that visiting Nairobi, Kenya, was one of the very important stages of my campaign. And I will continue to engage with the Kenyan government and the Kenyan, although I know they have a strong candidate, but I think that I will be the best contender to that position on the continent.
Talk to me about your key priorities, Minister. What would be your key priorities if elected to this position?
Of course, the number one priority will be peace and security cluster, because silencing the guns is a flagship program of the Union. So we need to work on making operational the mechanism of peace and security architecture that are not functional right now, such as the African standby force. The other point, which is, I think, very important that I have to pinpoint, is that we need to rely on domestic and internal resources to finance our peace missions. So far, we are relying on the funding coming from abroad. The third point, which is very important in this cluster, is the focusing on the early prevention, early warning, and the prevention mechanism with regard to potential crises. That's for peace and security. There are a number of reforms that have been already endorsed by our leaders with regard to the continental free trade area. Promoting and developing internal trade between Africans is also one of my priorities. Just to give you an example, which is very sad, is that the internal trade between African nations does not go beyond 20%. It's even less than 20%, while Africa is trading right now up to 80% with the other world. So we need to work on the key mechanism of this continental free trade area, the non-tariff barriers, the compensation and payment system. We have to also focus on the eligible custom products. When I say eligible products for customs, which are a list of products that need to be lifted from that list. We have also the idea of financing the program of the unions, relying on our own resources. So far, the reform of financing the African Union programs up to 0.2% on eligible import of member countries, that one has not been also completely implemented. I have also a very clear idea of how transparency and accountability of the management of the Commission will be improved. I will make sure and ensure that the staff of our union, the audit reports, which is quite alarming, should be really fully implemented, because we are noticing right now a low morale of the personnel. I think that youth and women and diaspora have their rightful place in the governance of our continental organization. So we need to revitalize the mechanism in charge of these categories of people. I will make sure that the Commission will work with youth and women in order to bring them at the center of our development programs. Unemployment, of course, is one of the key problems, critical problem that our youth are faced with. So to overcome this challenge, I think the continent should work on the transformation of our economies, the modernization of agriculture. We have a very, very beautiful plan for that called the Malabo Principles, the Malabo Framework, but the implementation level is quite low. And we all know that in order to create job opportunities for the African youth, the industrial transformation of our continent also is a key issue. So we will certainly make our efforts, stronger towards that goal. And at the end of the day, we see also digital economy, blue economy that are emerging in our continent. I think that digital economy in our countries is really the platform that will help us create more jobs for our youngsters. So many programs, some of them are already known, like, the flagship programs I have just mentioned. Others will certainly also emerge with our leadership at the head of the Commission.
Is enough being done, Minister? Is enough being done to make sure that the voices of young people are being heard in policy-making processes across the continent?
No, enough has not been done. I have to recognize that. And I think that they have been vocal, but their voice did not reach the decision-making policy organs on our continent. Indeed, we have some mechanisms like the ECOSOC, where we have civil society organizations represented. But my leadership and my governance at the head of the Commission will come up with innovative methods and processes. I think that each and every time, critical decisions will be made at the Commission level at least. I will make sure that the representatives of the youth organization and gender equality processes, the gender and women representatives will have their place around the table of decision making at the level of the Commission. And I will carry their voice to the Executive Council, which is the Ministerial Council of the African Union. And I also report back to the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments on the way forward with regard to how and the youth voice is heard loudly at this level. Of course, it's difficult to make promises and say we will resolve all the problems overnight. But I think that the potential of bringing, the youth and women at the center of decision making at the Commission level, at least, will be one of my top priorities. And I also promise that there will be more recruitments of youngsters, at the Commission level, because if we want to have their voice loudly heard, I think we need them to be better represented at the Commission level. And that's my commitment to the African youth and to the African women.
When the incumbent chairperson of the African Commission, African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed, took office, he put down some of those issues that you are talking about on his agenda. He spoke about the issue of silencing the gun and his plan to integrate the continent. I wonder, Minister, what you make of the incumbent chairperson's term? What do you make of Musa Faki Mohammed's term, Minister?
The Agenda 2063, which is an agenda that has been adopted by our leaders in 2014, this agenda is based on 5-10 years plan. And the first 10-year plan was not very successful. Let me be honest, because the implementation and execution rate did not go beyond the 37%, which means that many goals have not been reached. So my role and my commitment is that I will certainly work to raise this level of implementation and the execution of the second 10-year plan, because now we move to the second 10-year plan. The Agenda 2063 is based on 5 10-year plan. So that's one of the priorities, the implementation and execution rate, how to raise that level and see how the mechanisms that we put in place to implement the decisions, those mechanisms work properly and be functional. That's number one. The second issue, of course, as I said, we are in the process of building a continent. It's not a matter of reaching a goal for a company or trying to achieve, the objectives of a certain country. This is a big, organization with 55 countries. We have very deep concern about the crises that are ongoing in a number of regions in the Sahel, in the Horn of Africa, in Central Africa. And we all know that when we have unstable situations, development integrations are hampered, and there are so many hindrances. And we have, of course, a clear vision of how to resolve those problems. You talked about silencing the guns. Silencing the guns, you are right when you said that that program existed during the former chair of the commission. I mean, the actual one, he's still the chairman of the commission until February next year. But I think the leaders extended that program to 2030 because they felt that we did not reach the goals. And then the CFTA was adopted in 2019, actually endorsed and ratified. And we still have so many non-tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers that are hampering the implementation of the CFTA. I'm not saying that I will reinvent the wheel or I will come up with magic recipes to resolve those problems. But I think focusing on the methodology, focusing on innovative ideas, putting forward the capability of working harder, creating synergy between the regional economic communities, the Commission, and also the member states. I think these are the leverages on which I will work so that we can raise the level of execution and implementation of the decision our leaders made. I think this is the methodology, the very pragmatic approach I would really bring in at the Commission level.
Isn't it much depends, I suppose, on the collective determination and solidarity of these countries, isn't it, Minister?
Yes, national plans for development of member countries should be adapted to Agenda 2063. That's what the African countries, the national leadership are trying to do. So there is no contradiction between the continental development programs and the national, development plans and programs. So the synergy and the coordination to be made between these plans is up to the Commission, is upon the shoulders of the Commission to find that right recipe and also to create more synergy between member countries, regional communities, and the Commission. So there is no contradiction. I think the challenges are there. I also recognize that those challenges are daunting challenges for the continent. But as I said, you do not build a continental system, overnight. It takes years, decades, and generations. But every commission that comes, every leaders or chairman of the commission put its, let's say blueprint or fingerprints on how, the commission should move forward with the assignment and the goals that the leaders, gave us. So that's my ambition, that's my commitment, and that's the way my leadership will be implemented if I am elected next year, February 2025.
Regional bodies play such an important role in the continental integration agenda. Minister, how can they be strengthened so that they can assimilate into those continental goals that you are talking about and work much more effectively?
Peace and stability is, a prerequisite. It is paramount to have quick solutions to those crises on our continent. And there are so many. Unconstitutional changes of government also are proliferating on the Sahel region. This is also another challenge that the Commission and with the Peace and Security Council will have to handle very quickly. The number 3 issue, of course, is the lack of resources. On the continent, there are resources, but I think they are not well exploited. Just to give you an example, we have so many mineral resources, agricultural products. They leave the continent and they come back, with an added value of maybe 10 times. And the African nations lose, a lot of benefits and profits of those resources. So the idea of creating a market, an African market of commodities, is one of the flagship programs. If you have the resources, then it's easier for our leaders, for our commission and other mechanisms to implement, the programs that we have set to ourselves. And those resources, as I said, are there. We have to find, the best framework and the best strategy to tap on them. And resources, financial resources, is indeed one of the main challenge that we will have also to handle very quickly.
Are you optimistic that the continent will see the silencing of the guns soon?
We don't have the option of turning our blind away or not looking at those challenges. And optimism should be and must be at the center of our action. If we don't believe in what we are doing, so it's useless to try to do it. So if we believe that we can reach our goals of peace and stability on the continent through, silencing the guns by 2030, if we don't believe in that, it's useless to try even. So I think from my own perspective, it is possible. We have to be optimistic, and I am optimistic.
Next month, Minister, the world will be gathering for the United Nations Climate Summit to address the issues of climate change disasters. What is your plan? What is your vision of how the continent should approach the issue of climate-related disasters?
Let me first and foremost underline the fact that we need to pinpoint the fact that the African nations, the African countries are the victims of climate change. Africa is not the source of pollution. There are so many countries that have been polluting our climate for so many years, and now we are subjected to the consequences of that climate change. The African countries have a champion for climate change, His Excellency President William Ruto. We do have an African strategy and mitigation plans to adapt, to that climate change. But what is missing is the financial resources. For many years, now over 10 years, those countries who have been at the source of the pollutions and the climate change have been promising, financing and financial resources to African countries to implement their mitigation plans. But the African countries did not receive any money from those countries who have promised so far to pay for the pollutions they are, causing throughout the world, and in particular on our continent. So we believe that we need to stick to our African strategy for climate change adaptation policies. We have to develop our energy transition programs relying on renewables. We still have to work on how to develop and expand our African positions on those issues. We also need to work on the carbon tax issues. I think now some groupings in Europe, for instance, are trying to put barriers and tariff barriers on products coming from Africa, giving the excuse that these products are not produced on the best practices when it comes to carbon, production production issues. So we will fight against those unfair, measures that are actually isolationist and protectionist measures that some groupings are trying to put at their borders. But at the end of the day, they have to pay for the mitigation plans that we are developing because they are the polluters. So if I am elected at the head of the Commission, I will carry that message everywhere I can and promote the African strategy for mitigation and African plans for energy transitions. And we have them. Those frameworks do exist, and we need resources and finances for them.
Mm-hmm. But are you getting any sense, Minister, that the African continent is speaking with one voice when it comes to the mitigation strategy of climate change, disasters?
Yes, we have regular meetings. The last one before COP28, was held in Nairobi. Many heads of state attended that meeting. There is a common strategy when it comes to climate change on the African continent.
I believe you are multilingual as well, Minister.
Yes, indeed. I speak several languages. I speak Arabic, English, French, and Somali, Afar, and so many of our languages. And I believe that thanks to to that leverage, to that asset, I can reach out to all regions on our continent, to all countries on our continent without any hesitation or any complex with regard to the dialogue, discussions, and communication I could have with other leaders on our continent in many regions.
Mm-hmm. As you said earlier, Minister, the elections for this coveted continental position will be held next year at the sitting of the heads of state at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. How much ground do you still have to cover, Minister, galvanizing support? How many countries do you still have to go to selling your campaign?
We have already visited more than 20 countries. I still have to reach out to around 30 countries. So I'm confident we will, as I said, we will visit all capitals. And I think that, as I said, the signals, the indicators are green so far, and we will continue to work hard to reach out to all those countries and explain my plan and vision, and also be realistic and pragmatic and not just make promises without, considering that the leaders whom I will have in front of me know the continent even better than me, know the organization sometimes better than me. So they will find in me as a person, an honest and hardworking, and a person who will certainly give all I have in terms of energy, intellectual capacity to the continent. That's my promise. That's my commitment.
Mm-hmm. If you don't clinch the African Union Commission Chairperson position, Minister, what would that mean for you personally?
Not much, because I have achieved in my career so many goals, As I said, this is a life, challenge, but it's not a personal, an individual, challenge. It is a challenge for my country and for all the continent. If I'm elected, it's fair enough. If I'm not elected, life continues and goes on.
What would you like to say to your fellow candidates who are vying for the AU chairperson position?
Let's work on a clean, on a fair campaign, and let us give the best to the continent and show the best of our individual personalities, and the leaders will make the choice at the right time. So good luck to them.
It has been such a pleasure having you on Kumza Africa Amplified. Thank you so much for your time, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, the Kumza Africa Amplified. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much to His Excellency. Having heard what Mr. Mahmoud Ali Youssouf had to say in terms of his vision for the continent, what do you make of it? Feel free to drop us your comments. This is Kumza Africa Amplified, reverberating across Africa and beyond. It has been a pleasure having you along with us. Until next time, it's goodbye for now. Cheers.